work session with the county engineer regarding construction project update.
And it's, yeah, it's labeled construction project update. It's probably as much as funding combined with construction project update. We've been talking here for a while about making some decisions, and obviously we're coming out of a, in case you get bored, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Coming out of a period where there's a lot of unknown, I guess, is what I'd say about money, revenue. Of course, you guys have been getting the updates emailed to you from Jared, and I can't claim that I read them fully. They come from the DOT, of course. He's just forwarding them on. But every month that goes by right at the moment, the DOT is kind of lessening their expectations of major impact, I guess. I didn't read the most recent one, but I know that it even further continued to say that we have less and less expectation. We don't, obviously they don't know in 12 months what the whole picture is gonna be, but I just wanted to, I'll walk through this sheet that Becky put together. So you got, Colin, here you go. Your board. You should have that. You look. I mean, I'm sorry, it's
Don't
not
wanna
a
leave you out,
construction
Colin.
program.
Colin, if you don't have time to look at that now, you can take it home and you peruse it this evening.
If you're having any problems sleeping, just looking out for you. So let's start with our main two.
Have the kids check his math.
Yes. Here, basic addition and subtraction, kids. So let's start road use taxes, just to give you a little perspective on where we're at. And I told you at the beginning we were gonna have a work session at some point, but I was kind of waiting for that first 3 months post kind of the whole world shutting down kind of thing. Now, obviously road use taxes, you're talking about gas tax is a big part of it. You're also talking about license and title fees. And there's some other smaller stuff in there, but those are the biggies. So you can kind of compare fiscal year 20 to 21 as you go down those columns, or if you just want to look to the right column, you can see the difference. The parentheses are less or negative. So this year last year compared to this year. So you can see that first amount, it shows that we were up 148 and change. Then the next couple months we're down. And I want to emphasize that when you're talking about this much money, sometimes you're up or down purely because of the timing of when it closed, whether it be a Friday or a Monday. According to DOT, that can actually make a pretty big difference. Sometimes you end up with a few more days of revenue in 1 month and a few less in another month, especially if you're comparing the month previous, like the year before March to this March or whatever. And so I guess where I'm going at is, as you can see, we've seen minimal difference in the 3 month big picture, I guess. And overall, we're up a little bit, about 50,000 compared to last year. Now that's not projections, that's just kind of a year to year comparison. And I have to say, I think one of the big things for us in this state is that we never completely airtight locked down everything. I mean, we did close schools and stuff like that, but then things kind of bounced back. And yeah, there's a lot of people working from home, but obviously people are still driving and people are still buying fuel. And we still have interstates running through this state. The trucking industry barely slowed down at all. They'll tell you they might have seen a couple weeks where things went to a lull and then they just went crazy again. And now there's probably more loads than they can get hauled. So diesel is obviously a consistent thing that was good for us as far as the industries go, for people using it. But in the end, you can just look at July, August, September, and those are kind of those months that you start to see. Funding's always delayed by 1 to 2 months, even 3 months, depending on when it's, so you go fill up at the pump, those pennies that you're paying for road use tax aren't showing up in our revenue line for at least a couple months. By the time they go to the state, go through a spreadsheet, get divvied out by the equation, and ultimately dropped out the bottom. I mean, it's just, there's a lag time there. So that's why I'm looking at July, August, September, because the big shutdown was that March, April, May, June window. I guess what I'm saying is that right now, there's not there's no drop off. We're just looking at 3 months. I wouldn't be surprised, the DOT's still saying that over 12 months, they think there will be a decline, because when eventually, statistically, you need everything to average out, you know, whatever it is. And if there are people driving less and they continue to work from home and everything, that stat will even out over time. And you also have to remember that when we budget every year, and I mentioned this during budgeting time, we're using numbers provided. For instance, road use taxes is a target provided by the DOT. Well, when they provide that in December, or whenever that time period is, none of this was imagined. So there's a typical percentage growth depending on how your economy is doing in those numbers. So if they took last year's number and estimated, let's just say 2% growth in revenues, just losing 2% growth means you're gonna drop, even if you end up breaking even on the bottom number. So I don't know that we're gonna see no impact at all. I think we're gonna see little of enough impact right now that I can see that I think I'd like to continue our program as we were planning, and that's a still, I would say, I would call it a minimal gamble, but it is a bit of a gamble. But I want to go through the other fundings and then kind of let you see I'll pull out the construction program and kind of see my backup plans, so you guys can feel better about it, I guess, and and give you my opinion and see if you guys agree. And if that's the case, then we'll move forward as I'm planning. Road use tax wise, I do want to mention that in 2020, in fiscal year 2020, in the big picture, we actually were up a little over $200,000. You can see that right underneath the chart that I gave you. We budgeted a little over $3 million, and again, that's a state target number. We don't create that. And the final revenue that came in was, 3.22 and change. So we actually saw a little bump over what the projections were last year. And then I'll go down to local option sales tax. Again, you can see the entire kind of month by month printout there in 2020. Obviously, the first couple months are really the only thing to look at when you're going to compare 2021. But the big picture was that I think one of maybe my surprises was that when everybody had to stay home, I think everybody started doing honey-do projects and went to Menards and Lowe's and Walmart, and our local option sales tax went up by $50,000. And
it's all that toilet paper, Brian.
And toilet paper. Yes, exactly. Big ticket. So, even though people were staying home and not going to work and everything else, they were still, go look at the price of lumber right now. It's up 30+% because they ran, I think the national supplies are out or down. You can't get it, or the prices are just skyrocketed. It's 30% a minimum in some cases. So it was, I don't know, kind of an interesting dynamic. I know I had some personal business. I took an afternoon off and I had some personal business in Des Moines, and I didn't know where a place was, so I drove like 4 blocks of Des Moines or of Burlington that I've never really been around, and I swear every other house somebody was outside building a deck or something like that. Well, people did stuff that cost money, I guess. I built a dock because my wife informed me that the pool wasn't going to open and she needed a way to get in the pond. So I know how that goes.
Everybody's fixing their homes to be acute,
Yeah.
because you're spending more time there, so why not spend more on your own?
We had a tree, we had somebody come and take out a little bush or something that had to be cut out, like a part of it had to be ground, cut off part of a tree or something like that, and the tree services say they're busier than hell, they're at home, they said, oh, we need this or that. Same with, and we've had some work done, construction work done.
Yep.
Those guys, the home
They're
building and
swamped.
stuff, just swamped, because like you said, everybody's home, and said, you know, that toilet doesn't work, we need to get something done with that, we need, you know, whatever. They're just, because they're looking at it all day.
Yeah. Or they're tired of some little thing they were living with. and-
No, but
They're
they're
home
looking
every
at it
day
hour
and
after
they're
hour,
sick of
and
that.
it's really bad.
So it was kind of interesting dynamic. We really, way back when we started talking about this and, you know, kind of that March, April, May, we were like, I don't know how much money we're gonna be down, maybe $1 million. I mean, I know I threw that number out there once. Because you listen to the doom and gloom and you know, you can go up to the road use tax, you can look in the month of June and see there was 1 month, you know, 1 month in June, there was it was down, it was 136,000, that's a low amount of revenue, and so I can understand.
And I guess one of the differences I would mention is, the road use taxes, that automatically comes a couple, 3 months after they get it. They don't, the local option sales tax, somehow or another, they average that out or smooth that a little bit at the state. I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly how they do that, so,
And it's over my head.
Over mine.
We do obviously keep an eye on it, cause
Uh-huh.
50% of that comes to us, and that's a huge deal for an department. I'll be the first to admit it. It allows us to function at the way we do, which I just had a conversation yesterday with a lady that was very unhappy that we haven't done more for her road. You know, should be paved, should be more dust control, and so people
sure
always
you gave
want.
her our number.
People always, well, she wasn't thrilled with the end of our conversation, so I'm sure she's gonna call somebody else, but, so people still want more. I mean, there's always, you guys know that there's always more people want with compared to the money you have. So anywhere I'm going with this is that, looking at local option sales tax, again, only for the first couple, months, but it's a average to above average trend for what we budgeted. We tend to budget about $900,000. We hit some peaks a couple years ago when the fertilizer plant was going on and we had that many extra people around here. It made a big difference. But where I'm going is that revenue wise, you know, again, I can't tell you we won't end up down a little bit, but it looks pretty normal. And what I would like to do is I'd go ahead and we have a very aggressive construction program this year, and as you guys know, that's gonna roll into next year. I'd like to go ahead and kick our big project out the door for a bid this December, like we planned all the way along. The DOT is gonna bid their 4-lane, the rest of their next phase of the 4-lane project, in this 10-mile stretch in December. And we have we have the Flint Bottom project. It's 1.8 miles. It's all concrete. It's a lot of money. We've been sitting on it because, in fact, we didn't even fully finish design because why would you? I mean, we had enough construction projects going on. Why would you dedicate time to something that you didn't know if you could afford? But to be honest with you, at this point, I'm going to leave it full scale and throw it out there for a bid. We're gonna bid it in December. I mean, this is me laying my plan out, just wanted to hear that you guys are comfortable with it. Throwing it out there in September, or in October, or in December, I'm sorry, kind of pairing it up against, it'll be a local bid, whereas the DOT is obviously bidding on the DOT level. But throw it out on the same date and get that competition and go for it. And
Have you got a cost estimate on what?
I do, I'll walk through that with you.
Oh, more materials.
Yeah,
Thank
just in
you.
case you're bored.
Thank you.
Colin, you still look bored, so there you go, and plus I have an extra copy, so I might as well do it to you. So Jim, I'll give you about 3 different answers to your question about that cost estimate. In the paperwork I just gave you, if you flip to the second page, the budget number is 2.4 million. Now, I was starting in on this, you know, remember we update our construction program every year, but we don't ever just assume great bids. But what I'll be honest with you about is that if we get similar competition to what we've been experiencing, it will not be $2.4 million. Obviously, until you bid it, you don't have any guarantees. So we went back, I had Devin go back, and take a look at it, looking at our bid history here just recently. Because, I mean, let's look at our dynamics, they're very positive right now. You still have, Streb sitting in the county, still working, not sure they're gonna get done with concrete this year. Now, if they get completely done with concrete, then it flexes them to deciding if they're really interested in that project or not. Because there's a $300 million give or take project up for bid for the DOT in Iowa City for the new interchange that they're working on, if you've been through there. That's Streb's backyard, that's home. So they're gonna, and they told me during our project last spring, that's ours. We're gonna do everything we can to own that project, but that's a massive amount of concrete, probably over 2 or 3 years. It's not just a 1-year type project. So their dynamics are gonna change. Maybe they don't leave a plan at 5, maybe they're, you know, it's been a rough year for them down here. I mean, let's face it.
Will they pour a bridge deck on that up there?
Well, I think they have poured some bridge deck out there. I haven't been through there for a while.
They've been running anywhere from 14, 15 or more cranes out there, different crews going
Yeah.
around building those bridges.
Yeah, I haven't been through there, so I can't give you a visual update of where things are
I
at.
didn't know whether Streb poured.
No, Streb will not do bridge decks.
Okay, that's
I will
fine.
tell you that Iowa Bridge and Culvert has had a number of projects up there, and I don't know if they've been on that or city projects, but there has been bridge work going on, but Streb is strictly concrete paving for main line and for driveways and parking lots, and they don't do bridge decks. So, that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But they're after all the main line, they're after all the ramps, the road through there and all that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
so, but no matter I always say, you actually don't need competition, you need the perception of competition. And the fact is, the Streb's still got a concrete plant sitting at 5. And nobody at Manats or Cedar Falls or any of those other big concrete guys knows if Streb's gonna bid or not. They don't know if they're gonna be competitive or not, so they gotta come with their A game. And so when
Jones is right here.
Jones, and when we put ours out, Jones gotta come with their A game too, and they'll be the first to tell you that it really irritates them that they get put in that position. But, I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not sorry for that.
Yeah.
Um,
That was good planning.
so where I'm going with that is that when we did I'm gonna give you, it's a big range, Jim, it lets you kinda get a feel for how much it changes for competition. When we take our gear prices, cause Flint Bottom's a very similar project to gear. I mean, to save ourselves some money and to get away from having to buy a bunch of right of way and do a whole bunch of new grading, we're gonna leave curb and gutter through most of it. And now, you have to understand, that design decision was made 3 or 4 years ago, not knowing the kind of conditions we'd have and the cost benefits we'd be getting, but you make decisions and you move forward. So if you took the high prices, the high bids from gear and kind of tucked them in, we were looking at probably a maximum of 2.3 million. That'd be kind of what we would say the upper end, what we would be expecting. If you took as low as Jones went, which I don't think we will see, I'm gonna be honest with you, but if you take as low as Jones went on bid prices on gear, you're looking at a project at 1.6 million. That's the swing that could be in there in that bid. All of those could be good numbers. I mean, again, we have a budget sitting there at 2.4. So I would have to say, I'm assuming we'll land 1.6 to 2 million. That's probably the range I would have to guess, no matter what happens, no matter what comes in. So just from the budgeting standpoint, that's obviously a savings over what we have. So what I would like to do is move forward. I already have my assistant working towards what I would call a final set of plans for that Beaverdale project. And then I'm gonna kinda give you what my idea of a kind of a safety factor is. If you flip through the program, you go to the second page of the program, under that $2.4 million, there's the project out, it says agency road, but what that is that's the hill on Geode on the other side. We've talked about the project, everybody knows it needs done. It's a small project, it's a lot like the one we did on Pleasant Grove. So you're not gonna get as good of bids, you're just not. The big boys aren't gonna care about it. And so it's not gonna be as competitive, but we have 220,000 in that. I think that's a realistic estimate. I can see it actually being a little low. If you aren't aware, one of the problems the concrete industry ran into this year was a fly ash shortage, and that impacts your mix. And if you have to, fly ash offsets the use of cement, and it's a cheaper product than cement. So if that shortage carries on through, or if the contractors are scared of that shortage and so they bid a higher cost because they can't guarantee fly ash access, we will see the price of concrete go up no matter what the competition is. And so 220, I could see that going up a little bit because it's a tough site anyway. It's a hill. It's tight quarters. But still, where I'm going with that is that to me that becomes our buffer number. So we bid Flint Bottom. Maybe we get great competition and great prices, which is even better. I'm going to step to that next actually for a second. But as long as our revenues keep coming good, and we're not bidding till December, so that's going to give us October, November, and December revenues to look at to see what that trend is. We have that 220,000 that we can sit on. You know, that road is not. I mean, it needs dealt with, but it's not like it needs closed. You can drive on it, and so we'll just sit on that bid. Just hold it off, see where our bids come in at, see where our revenues are going. Look at that with another 3 months of information, and if we are happy, then we'll keep on going and we'll put a bid out for that. We already have plans that aren't too far off of being ready for that project. And so that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, is let's get our big one out there. Flint Bottom takes the most abuse and needs the most work, and it's the most important of those. Let's get that out there. See how things go, see where we're sitting, and we'll pull the plug on the Geode one if we start to get concerned. If we don't get concerned and where life's good, then we're gonna move on with Geode, and then Tom will let you say
They
what.
still talk about bidding phase 3 on 61 in December.
That's why I'm aiming for December.
That's what I meant, yeah.
That's exactly right. So then I'm gonna toss one more thing out there, and this is not in your program, so you don't need to flip through. We are still working towards a couple of these other projects, and stuff like that, but as on the concrete side of things is where I'm going with this. We've been successful, Upper Flint's a good example. It's a short little project, but it needed the worst, we took care of the worst of the worst, and we got good prices. Even Pleasant Grove Road, we didn't get the competition because we bid it a year before, but it was a good project and a good little, the worst of the worst. The segment of Pleasant Grove right in front of the quarry, it's taken abuse. I mean, it was in the latter stages of its life to start with. I don't mean to come here and say that everything that's happened, but the quarry is busy, and next year presents the potential of a lull out of that quarry for the DOT related projects. You're gonna have some stuff come from, I talk with my hands, so this shouldn't be an issue. You're gonna have some products coming out of L&W for the rest of this project, maybe all of it for all I know, and I hope they do. It's good for a local business either way, whether it be Nelson or L&W. Those are where most of those will come from. But that hill it's seen better days. We're gonna have to do a patch on it this winter just to deal with the one spot, but I'm kind of eyeballing that. It's not in our program, but with the dynamics we have going on locally, I'm kind of thinking about maybe linking that and Geode together. I'll have to do a program amendment and bring it into the program, and maybe linking those together and tossing them out as long as, let's just say come January, February range, we're happy with where our prices are and everything. Maybe linking that, bring that project in and getting aggressive and trying to bring in another concrete job and taking care of a segment of road that I don't think that segment of road's going to survive through the entire DOT project. I guess that's one of the things I'm looking at. I think the rest of Pleasant Grove Road with some patching and everything, I think it'll be fine, I really do. It's not perfect, but I think it'll be fine. But I'm not sure that hill and that quarry, in front of that quarry with, it's not very good drainage. If you ever go out there, there's water bleeding up through the concrete every time it gets wet or it gets rain and everything. I'm just not sure that it's gonna survive. So I thought about tossing that out there next spring, bidding those two together, letting them work on geode whenever they want to, and then forcing the work in front of the quarry to be done late season. So that it's after the majority of the construction season, possibly even paying for insulation and heated water and letting them push it all the way out as, later than you would normally think of for concrete work. To impact the quarry as little as possible. This is all just kind of pie in the sky right at the moment, but I wanted to mention that to you, that's kind of floating around in the back of my head as a possibility. Because once you get through next year, the interchange starts up. And you've got bridges, you've got grading, and there's a chance some of that dirt or all that dirt comes out of the quarry. There's a chance that the rock comes out of the quarry. Now you got Nelson Quarry, so you've got other Barrows locations, so I'm not saying that it will, but let's face it, there's a decent chance of it. So you don't know, it's a complete crapshoot of when the next true lull is out in that area. So for that project to be easily done. So I don't know that that's what'll happen. The quarry has two main access points now, so it does set up to where we could work in front of one for a while, get that done. Then they could start using that one and we could work on front of the other one. So there's some potential there for something like that. All this again goes back to the beginning of the conversation. How's our revenues look? We'll have a whole nother conversation. It'll probably be in the middle of budget season, which isn't ideal, but that's the timing of it. We'll have that conversation and say, hey, here's how things look, here's what I think, and are you guys good with this? So we'll look at all that more. So more importantly, are you guys comfortable with me moving forward with the Flint Bottom project and being aggressive on that?
I am. I don't know about these gentlemen.
I am, I think, the competition we've got now is probably once in a lifetime.
I agree.
For some of this stuff, and as we've seen, as you've seen, when I was a contractor for a long time, competition is an incredible thing. So yeah, I'm in favor of both of those things.
Okay.
I think, go ahead.
All right.
I was on that last night, on that segment you're talking at.
In front of the quarry?
15,
Or-
by Geode.
Oh, geode,
On the
yeah.
other side of the dam, that is terrible.
Yeah, it's rough. But it has been for a long time. We
Yeah.
did some patching on it
Yeah.
6 or 7 years ago. I had a ragbri just to try to improve it. So, but it needs done.
Then I got up where Pickle Church is at in Lee County.
Mhm.
They've done that from Pickle Church all the way over to Salem, or to 218, new blacktop on that.
Pickle Church, I've never heard of that.
Is that right?
No, I never.
That's up when
Are you talking once you go on through Lowell, you're talking
go
that,
through Lowell, and you
you're
go up
talking the
hill.
6 mile piece between that road, X-23 and
Yeah, whatever road it
218.
is.
They did that this summer.
Yeah, the Pickle Church is right there on that corner. That-
They did all new asphalt on that.
That's nice, smooth.
Yeah.
It's about as smooth as,
My kid gets a lot of credit for that. He was an inspector on that
Good for
project
you.
for Henry County. Yeah. You get to stand out there and look at the construction crew. But I haven't been on it. I have heard it's very nice.
Yeah.
But I haven't been on it. I need to get on it so I can critique my kid. But I just haven't put that effort into it, so.
you might not wanna go on until after it's got some waves in it then. That thing just as smooth as what this countertop is.
Yeah, yeah. It's, And it needed it. I mean, I talked to Henry County Engineer and he's like, this was a long time coming, so. But, well, I'm pretty much done. I mean, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure, it takes a lot of work to get a project to bid, and it's a local bid, so it takes a little more work from us. And before I really set all those in action, I wanted to make sure you guys are comfortable with, I mean, where I'm heading.
Yep.
So, okay, well then that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna proceed with the bid on Flint Bottom, multi-million-dollar possible project, and that'll, that's actually one of the reasons. So I did also, I'll give you another update. I spoke to the contractor that's gonna do the, Flint Creek Bridge. I think Tom might ask me this, but I don't remember. It could have been one of you guys or somebody else for that
I asked
matter.
you last week if they were gonna start.
Okay, it was you then. They, as of now, they still do plan on closing that the soonest possible date, which is that first week in
First
November.
week in November, yeah.
So, yeah, which is, I think is great. I mean, I want them to work hard and long early. That's what I want. That's the way we set it up.
That means we'll get our first bill in November.
I talked to them about stockpiling materials previously, and they didn't foresee much of that. And I talked to Cheryl and let her know that. So I think it's realistically, your first bill will be in November, but we're gonna have a pre-construction meeting, and I will verify that. It's 2 or 3 weeks before we have that meeting, but
I'm just talking about setting up a line of credit.
absolutely, I understand. Cheryl talked to me about that at length. Oh, it's been a little while, but a couple months back or something like that. And I did reach out to them, and they said at that point, they really couldn't see much. Through the contract process, I guess people don't see it behind the scenes, but there's such a thing as called stockpile materials. And there are certain materials on a construction project that if you go buy ahead of time and provide the invoices and the certifications and all the documentation, that you have a legal right to request prepayment of a portion of. And they didn't foresee that happening on this. So that would lend to, in all likelihood, the first payments would be sometime in November. So if I hear something different, I'll let Cheryl know, because I knew, like I said, we were talking about that for that reason. But, so that's where we're heading. So you're probably going to hear me say pretty much every Tuesday from here on out, bring that up. For anybody that might be listening or anything else, there's a lot of people aware of it. What I found is people know the project's coming, they've just quit paying attention to what year it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
I mean, in all seriousness, that's the question, what year is it, this year or next year?
Regulations just kept pushing us back
We
for the
did.
last couple of years, so.
And so that's coming, and again, I like their approach, I hope that keeps up.
And Brian, when you get ready when that gets closer to being closed, let us know, because we can put a news flash on the county website that, road closure or something like
Great,
that.
great.
And then we can add it to the news flash so that.
And I will send some.
Post Brian's cell phone number right
Yeah.
there.
That would be great.
I'll make sure I'll put secondary roads
I
numbers on.
appreciate any help I can get.
And the board's cell phones,
Be
right?
the first time that I've changed my work cell phone number since I've been here.
I'll change my cell phone number. What's yours, Colin?
And so that's coming along. So things are looking good for that. I would mention we actually talked about this in the office. That project, we actually did something we've only done one other time, the Augusta Bridge. We actually have contractor staking in that bridge, so our surveyor won't actually do a majority of the staking on that bridge. The reason we did that is because of the Flint Bottom job. So the Flint Bottom job, we're not gonna let them close both ends of the road at the same time, because that clearly would landlock, make a cluster for everybody living there. Now, we may let them work on both ends at the same time, but they will have to have one direction or the other open for two-way access for people to get through, at least the local residents. Everybody else can go a different way. That doesn't bother me, but, so what I'm going with is the Flint Bottom project at 1.8 miles has a chance to string out basically the entire year. It really does. I mean, it has potential to be a 4-month-long project, just with all that process. I didn't want our surveyor having to try to be staking for the Flint Creek Bridge when he was also trying to put in, there's never a good way to show boards how much work it is for a paving job for a surveyor, but it's a ton. I mean, it's a ton of work, especially if it's not GPS, and most aren't. Like Jones is not a GPS contractor. Streb was the first GPS we've ever had for paving. And even then, he had to set 200 control points for them. So, point being is that I didn't want there to be problems with one or the other, because they both need things just like that. So they have a consultant that'll do their surveying, and we'll just oversee it and maybe double check a little bit of stuff. And also on a bridge of that size, it brings some liability protection in. If there's a problem, there's some, we can go back on some issues there. So I don't expect that, but, so anyway, that's the other thing we kind of set things up knowing that there was a chance Flint Bottom would be overlapping that Flint Creek work. And that just stretched us too thin for that area of our office, so. All right, well, that's the big thing I wanted to hit you up on. We're still working on some what I'd call the smaller stuff. That bridge up in the bottoms, the little beam and slab on the dead end road, I'm still kind of working towards that. So there's some other stuff that are still kind of moving on that I anticipate still moving forward with. Things might be a little behind where they were supposed to be, but we're still moving.
How about the bridge on Links?
It's not moving at all. If the board wants that to move, let me know, but that's a chunk of
Turn around
change.
there and back out.
Hey, we replaced the culvert at Lynx and Beaverdale.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that works out the way you got it fixed, that's nice.
And we took care of that slide. We put some concrete down that slide, but
Oh, yeah, I saw that, yeah.
so bus drivers are a pain in the ass, Joe. But
Well, some bus drivers are just the ass.
but as far as that bridge goes, Bob, unless the board gets a whim and wants to go spend a couple hundred if a bridge goes in there, $500,000 or $600,000 possibly, that bridge is going to stay the way it's at for right now. So
Too much other stuff going on. Like I say, Bob can pull up there and back out. You made a nice turnaround for him.
well, we aim to
Cut my
please.
time about bunch, if I could just turn on Links, go down through there, pick up 4 kids.
Why don't you just back out? You got new eyes. Just back out onto Beaverdale.
They're that good.
Anyway, thanks for your time. But I just wanted you guys comfortable with that before I went ahead. Some big numbers. I'm comfortable with them, but I want to make sure you guys were too.
Thanks, Brian.
It's a good deal. I was apprehensive about that tax money not being there, because that affects us for a long way down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely it does. So things are looking good. I'm also in the process of applying for some quote-unquote extra bridge money that if we were successful, we'd have to come up with a match and we'd have to pay for some consulting fees. I'll be honest with you, I mean, we're not gonna get it. I'm gonna launch an application out there, but we won't get it. And so if we do, I'll let you know. We'll have some expenses. You guys won't care because it'll be outside bridge money coming in to do a bridge, so that's a good thing. So I'll let you know if we're successful, but that's due today and we'll submit it, and I don't foresee it. It's not a bad thing we don't get it. It's just there'll be other bridges that'll qualify in Iowa better than ours. That's not a bad thing. That shows that our system's in good shape. So, all right, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
We're adjourned.